I guess we'll do.
Clear. By the way, I got no one asked a question on Twitter or not that it matters.
I thought we got a Twitter question.
I don't see one. Oh, maybe hang on. No.
You sure? It was almost positive.
I'm not sure. Let me look back. I didn't think I saw one. But again, we can just talk about oh, you're right. We do have responses. Hey, I don't know. I missed them. Oh, it's just Anthony. Okay. Maybe we have two, and we have this guy Omega. Okay. Cool. You want to talk to the Knicks?
Yeah. Let me start up the room.
Any luck in your work? Letting you work from home one more day a week?
No, it wasn't even a question, but they had a write-in at the end, so I wrote in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. And they said, "Ha ha ha! We'll wait till everyone leaves first."
Yeah. All right, posting on Facebook, posting on Twitter. All right, you ready to go?
Ready to rock this out, Jay.
All right.
We are the New York Knicks. I'm back in the New York groove. Well, it's the Knicks. New York. We are the New York Knicks. New York. For this new season we're about to enter, the Knicks is taking no shorts, just like winter. New York, New York.
New York be about the Knicks, huh?
But the best thing about New York City is
K-N-I-C-K-S.
Everybody say go New York, go New York, go!
Go New York, go New York, go!
Everybody, welcome to the New York Knicks podcast, episode 565, part of Dash Radio. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm upset. I know you're upset.
Why would we be upset?
You know, Jay, don't even hide back the anger. I know you're upset. So, for everyone that knows, the NBA celebrated the 75 best players in NBA history, and Jay, I'm going to break it to you in case you don't know already.
Mm-hmm.
They left Frank Ntilikina off the list.
How?
I don't know how. Like, he should have been in the arena. They should have celebrated him. Michael Jordan should have given him a hug. I don't know how Frank Ntilikina was left off the list.
I mean, who's responsible? We have to start a campaign.
Yeah, I mean,
MoveOn.org. Let's start one.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare, like, okay, look at LeBron's statistics, and then look at what Knicks Twitter thinks, or at least thinks Frank Ntilikina's stats would be if the Knicks had started him right from the start. They'd be comparable. I mean, I think Frank would have won a couple of titles.
Well, I mean, if you do Frank's stats per 36, and then you take LeBron's stats and do it like per 4, I think they're pretty close.
Yeah, I think it's just really messed up that the NBA would do this.
But
I'm not going to recover, Jay. I don't know if we can even go on the show. If you do if you look at the advanced stats of his best 30 seconds, like there's no one else in NBA history that's had a better 30 seconds.
Definitely not Reggie Miller.
Definitely not Reggie. That's low. That's low, Jay.
So, well, I mean, that was 30 seconds. I guess Miller had a better 9 seconds. So
that's true.
We do have to say congratulations to Obi. Won the dunk contest.
Yes.
The Knicks had one entrant in All-Star Weekend, and they came out victorious.
Yeah. I was going to say So my biggest fear of the dunk contest, I don't know, what was your, I don't know, did you have any big fears of the dunk contest? So my big fear with Obi is I thought he'd pull up from 3. And I thought basically he would just be sitting the 3-point line and just start shooting. I'm glad he understands that he shouldn't do that in the dunk contest. I hope he understands in games he shouldn't do that either.
Well, I mean, I'm glad they didn't put him in the 3-point contest.
Oh, I wish they put him in the 3-point shooting contest.
Wouldn't that be fun? if they had like the 5 worst 3-point shooters in the 3-point contest, like have like
Yes!
Giannis and Obi and Giddey is like shooting like 24%, like all terrible shooters.
Are you sure Giddey's shooting 24%? Because against the Knicks, he looked like goddamn Reggie Miller.
I mean, all his other stats are ridiculous, but his 3-point shooting is bad. He also was the youngest player to have 3 straight triple doubles, so I'm not bashing Giddey.
No, he's a very good player, but don't you think that would kind of improve wouldn't that improve the all, because all the All-Star team contests, everyone like the 3-point shooting, like of all the contests, I like the 3-point shooting contest the best. What's your favorite of all of them?
It's always been the 3-point contest.
Yeah, that's the one that's most exciting. But
they're getting
overall,
a little gimmicky with like the Mountain Dew ball and the full rack and like, but it's still my favorite one.
Yeah. So here's how I'd improve it. Instead of take the worst dunkers in the NBA, the people who least look like they can dunk, put them in it. Take the guys with the 5 lowest three-point percentages, make them in the 3-point contest. Make it just the worst possible players in the NBA.
I mean, I wouldn't mind having that as like a preliminary to each one. You could have the.
Oh, I just forget the preliminary. That should be the contest. And the All-Star game, just make them all play with one of their hands tied behind their back. Make this shit entertaining. It's not entertaining as is.
Well, that's what Chris Paul did.
Yes, he got injured.
That was nice of him to break his finger and come out in the cast, and he's like, "No, I'm still going to play just so somebody else doesn't get an All-Star spot. I'm going to play for like 45 seconds."
I know you said that, but do you really respect when some guy's like a All-Star replacement and he gets to say he's an All-Star? I understand, like, I'm like, that guy, like, he didn't make the All-Star team. He's like the injury replacement. That shouldn't count as an All-Star.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you always get a guy who doesn't really deserve to get in, but the people vote him in, so it kind of evens out.
Okay, fair enough.
Like, you had the season where Kobe played literally 5 games and he was in the All-Star game. It's like, okay, so maybe we could let a replacement or two in. I mean, Jared Allen and Jamal Murray were like, not Jamal Murray, the guy on the Spurs. Anyway, they were both deserving to get in.
Okay, I mean, I'd also go the other way and just let the fans vote on all 15 guys in each team, and also take write-in votes. So maybe like you let like Knicks fans or like Frank Ntilikina stands go crazy, and Frank Ntilikina makes the All-Star game, and everyone's like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "According to Twitter, I'm the best player in the NBA." I don't know.
No,
So
I don't like that at all. The people have proven they cannot handle the responsibility of voting All-Stars.
There's got to be ways to make this a more entertaining game or entertaining weekend. Because currently it's just not that entertaining. I remember as a kid I used to love this. Maybe because I'm older, but right now I feel like it's just lame.
I still enjoyed the 3-point contest. I didn't like anything else. Although I didn't watch the actual All-Star game, and I missed Curry hit 16 threes, so that might have been fun to watch.
But no one plays any defense, so it's just kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you think of? And we'll talk to Knicks in a second. But so one of the things Adam Silver has been pushing is having an in-season tournament, like a March Madness type tournament, like single game elimination, mid-season tournament. What do you think of that idea?
Dumb.
What if you did it? If you want to do it, what if the winner of that tournament gets locked in for the 8th seed? Like they cannot fall out of the playoffs. No, if they're higher, they're the 1 seed. Obviously, you get the 1 seed. But if you make that, you don't have to win another game the rest of the season. You're going to make the playoffs.
No, I don't like it.
Is there any way you'd like that? Is there any fun way to do a one? Because I do think a single elimination tournament would be kind of fun.
Are you talking about with like every team?
Yeah, I mean, you can give like to make it work out. You can give a certain number of teams like a bye in the first round. But yeah, like every team, all 30 teams plays in a single elimination tournament and have one winner or something like that. Or maybe the two top teams get some kind of special recognition. Like there has to be some advantage basically to doing it.
I know. I'm just trying to think of a way to like. At first, I was thinking maybe you get extra ping pong balls in the lottery, but I'm thinking, well, you just have the best teams like get even better.
Right.
So that's probably not great.
That's why I was saying but again, you're right. The better team doesn't really need the automatic 8th seed. maybe
It's hard to come up with a reward that's not totally skewed, and it's or just like it's either going to be too little or too much. I feel like
right. Too little players are just not gonna they're like, we're already doing 82 games. The season's like kind of long. I'm not gonna give my you can make it part of the season, but for it's just for bragging rights alone doesn't really work out that well.
yeah.
Or you can make it the winner gets like that whatever conference they get the home court advantage for the finals. Yeah, okay, whatever. Daryl Morey actually proposed doing a 58-game regular season and a one and done for the playoffs. What do you think about that?
I like the 58-game regular season. I don't like the one and done playoffs at all.
I don't know how you can even do a 58-game regular season. These guys get paid so much money that like you cut 24 games out of the season, you're going to lose a lot of money.
I thought the season where they had 66 games was pretty much perfect.
I thought last year at 72 was fine. Okay, Knicks. Big news in Knicks world is what the hell's going on with this organization? Lots of infighting now. Like things are being reported. Is Tibbs going to be fired? It's going to be a running theme for the rest of the season. If he's not fired sooner, there have been some reports going around. Jay, how are you feeling about Tibbs? So some things that have going around about it. Apparently, William Wesley, Worldwide West, apparently the rumors are is that he has made the case to Leon Rose that this whole season is Tibbs' fault. What do you think about that, Jay?
I think if I screwed up the roster so bad that I didn't have a starting level point guard, I would try and defer the blame somewhere else as well.
Yes. I from what just reading the Knicks Twitter timeline and reading on Reddit, just reading generally, fans seem like they all think it is 100% Tibbs' fault. And if only Tibbs had managed this team correctly, we'd be competing for the finals. What's your opinion on this take?
I think it's a pretty bad take. So right before we were doing the show, I was doing a Twitch stream. I was doing GM mode in NBA 2K. And I know it's not perfect, but they do update the player ratings fairly regularly. And Sims and McBride were unplayable in the game. Just absolutely unplayable. And these are the guys that Knicks fans are like, they're going to say...
Jay, are you really commenting on the video game? This is like, I don't know, in the video game, McBride's not that good, so I guess Tibbs is right, not playing him.
Do you think that they're really that good? And
no, not at all. I think so. Any fan that thinks if they only started McBride from day one of the season, they would be an awesome team is out of their goddamn mind. I want McBride to play mostly because the season is clearly lost, and I just see no point in playing Kemba. You might as well play McBride. See if he gets any better, develop, see what happens with him playing. But you're out of your goddamn mind if you think like, oh, if only Tibbs had played McBride for the right number of minutes at the beginning of the season, or Sims enough minutes at the beginning of the season, we'd be a great team.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's at this point, you're right. The schedule is ridiculous the whole rest of the way. The Knicks can conceivably go 5-13 for the rest of the season. And just based on that fact, you might as well try something else. I know that they're playing Kemba because he's got another year on the contract. And if you just bench him now and then like 3 months later, he's like, hey, guys, I'm back for a whole nother year. It's a little awkward. So,
I think you just buy him out. I know he has another season, but my thought really was when you signed Kemba, that second year was only there if it worked out. Like if it doesn't work out, you cut bait. It's supposed to be a low risk contract where the upside is if he's good, we get him on a good deal the second year. You can't be like, well, he signed for next year. He might be a disaster, but he's our disaster. Kemba's clearly not worked out. Why continue to play him? Do you think it'll somehow work out next year with Kemba? Like our organization would have to be out of their goddamn minds if they're like, well, we don't need a new point guard because we have Kemba for next season. We're good. I don't know what your problem is.
You think they're going to stretch him and so we can pay him for 4 years without playing for the team like Noah?
Right. They'll stretch him. So they're like, well, if we stretch him, we get like $3 extra million in cap space that no one wants because no one's going to come here for that $3 million. So let's do that.
So the bad news is that the Knicks are still paying Noah, but the good news is that he's not the third highest paid player on the team anymore.
That's good news.
He's moving down. He's moving.
I mean, I guess like part of the, I think that there's blame goes everywhere. Clearly Tibbs has some blame. Clearly, I think you're crazy if you don't think Leon Rose and like front office has some blame. And the players, I mean, Julius Randle hasn't been as good this season. There's lots of blame to go around. I have just been on the mindset. The blame starts at the top. Rose is, well, I mean, Dolan's always the issue, but Rose is not going anywhere. I mean, Dolan's not going anywhere. I think Rose, he came in the offseason, he just doesn't go all in on any decisions. On the beginning, he got here and he's like, hey, I don't like the team we have. I'm going to draft Obi, move on from Randall. Drafts Obi and just says, oh, I guess I'm not going to move on from Randall. Oh, Randall's good. I'll sign him up and I'll devalue what we have in Obi because I'm going to give Randall all these minutes. It's a weird way. There's lots of weird choices he made. Mm-hmm. But after last season, the Knicks were pretty good. And he said, hey, I'm going to go more all in on this roster. I'm going to sign a bunch of guys and try to make us a good team. Overall, is that a ridiculous thing to do?
No, I mean, they were the 4th seed. They still had – it's not like it was an all-vet team like the 54-win team. They were starting RJ and Robinson, who are both very young. So you say, you know, hey, I think we can upgrade. Both choices were – I mean, Fournier has been fine, but at this point, like –
He's not leading the wins. That's what it comes down to. The team is really bad.
You traded defense for offense, and apparently the Knicks needed defense more.
Right. I mean, the rumors are Tibbs was totally against the Kemba signing. Apparently, also the Knicks. Have you heard that the Knicks, their new analytics department, thought Kemba, like that was one of the reasons behind bringing Kemba, was the analytics department, in their vast wisdom, thought Kemba was a good addition to the team.
See, this is why I think advanced stats are terrible.
I mean, this is the analytics department should just be like, we quit. We're not going to put that we work for the Knicks on our LinkedIn page. No one needs to know that we ever worked here.
I wonder if they're using those stupid new stats. I go on some sites now and they're using stats called like Raptor and LeBron, and there's really a stat called LeBron now, and I'm like, I'm not using it.
I think Raptors from 538.com. There's all these stats, and the problem with all these stats are no normal human being understands it all what this stuff means. Like the win shares. What the hell does it actually mean? If you were playing basketball with your friends, could you calculate your win share that day? You cannot, or wins above replacement or any of that stuff, because a lot of stuff doesn't. It makes sense in the computer program and all that, but I think it just discounts how good the player actually is on the court. I don't know. I find the stats just kind of annoying because no one even understands how to calculate this crap.
Yeah, and then I sent you an article that was talking about the top 75 players of all time, and it said Harden's underrated, and it was because of a championship edition stat that this guy just came up with that shows how many championships this guy would bring over his career. And it's like, well, it was about Harden. I'm like, well, he had 0, so the answer is 0. It's not 37.2 or whatever the hell he had on his calculation. So
championship year, like he didn't win any championships, so what the hell are you talking about?
Right.
Like all these things also, they're really good for building a fantasy basketball team, but you're like, hey, here's what you say Kemba brings. He actually got here and he's giving nothing because your advanced stats should be lit on fire. You just don't, it doesn't work quite that way. You can't just put everyone's stats together and be like, this guy scored 20, this guy scored 50. You can't just add the points together. There's only so many shots in a basketball game.
Well, there's also different play styles, and you can't have a fast break 7 seconds or less player playing with like a slow plotting. Like, you have to have the same styles too. So
figuring out fit is a huge thing. Yeah, but so I feel like Tibbs just made. Would it be fair to say after last season, If I asked you, this was the season that just ended, I said, what was Leon Rose's best move since he started? If I asked you that at the end, at the day after the last season ended, what would you have said?
Day after last season ended, Derrick Rose.
You say that's his best move, or would you say hiring Tibbs? Because I would make the argument that after last season, we would have said Leon Rose's best move was. And by the way, the reason they got Derrick Rose is because Tibbs made a push for it. So they weren't even looking at it also. So you can count Rose as part of Tibbs.
No, you're right, because the Knicks had almost the same exact roster the season
year
right
before
Tibbs came, and they were one of the worst in the league. So I'd say you're right.
Yeah, I find it just weird that we make no like. And in Tibbs' defense, he's the coach that he was before he got here. It's not like he's coaching any different. Like everything he's doing, he got it. First of all, he was coach of the year last year, which a lot of people are like, whatever, coach of the year last year, we could fire him anyway. But he is the coach. He's a win now coach. He basically, the Knicks hired him and said, get as many victories as possible. And now we're really pissed at him because he's playing like he needs to do that this year.
Yeah.
And he's playing guys too many minutes. But this is what he did in Chicago and Minnesota. This is what you signed up for.
Yeah, we knew it was going to happen.
So, yeah, I mean, like, it's not like Leon Rose hired him and expected a different coach. Like, shouldn't anything, if you were pissed off at all at what Tibbs is doing, you should be pissed at Leon Rose because Leon Rose wanted this. This is what he was asking for.
Yeah.
And this is his best move his best move in the front office was to hire a guy that 6 months into his, halfway through his second season is considered a complete disaster.
It's funny because you sent me one article and a listener sent us another article, and one of them was saying, don't blame Tibbs, blame the front office. And the other one is saying that Tibbs destroys all his players and he's the worst thing you could possibly hope for.
No, that article I sent you was basically talking about, first, the article talked about how Tibbs, the articles were written a couple years ago when Tibbs was in Minnesota. It talked about how the defensive schemes that Tibbs came up with kind of changed basketball in many, many ways. It's not that we're getting too much into it, but basically his defensive schemes when he was with the Celtics really were super innovative and changed kind of how NBA offenses how to react. He's a very innovative defensive coach. He's not an innovative offensive coach, obviously. But on defense, but his defense also, his defensive schemes are counteracted by teams it's one of the reasons teams have to have all these guys that shoot really well and keep a lot of ball movement because they counteract all his defensive schemes.
Right. No, that was the first half of the article. The second half was saying
how he's running all the Timberwolves in the ground, right?
Well, it was saying how like he gets more wins, but what he does is when other teams put in their bench unit, he leaves the starters in more, so the starters gain a couple points beating up on the other team's bench unit. But at the end of the fourth quarter or like at the end of the season, they're breaking down and they're getting injured, and they refer to like Luol Deng and Noah. So like, yeah, you start off getting more wins with him using that strategy, but you don't develop players and you get a lot of injuries, and then he leaves and you have a bunch of like burnt out injured players left in its wake.
Right. That was the critique during last season also. And part of the reason people feel like the Knicks didn't do as well in the playoffs, because if you treat every regular season game like it's the playoff, you're willing to play everyone 40 minutes, then you'll just get some extra wins basically because other teams aren't going to treat every regular season game like the playoffs. So Tibbs does that. They get an extra wins. But then come the playoffs, everyone's treating every playoff game like it's actually the playoffs. So he loses his advantage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he really obviously should be playing guys like Randall like 32 minutes. Just he should be monitoring their minutes to make it more reasonable, basically, and find some way to win with the bench. And I'm not saying Tibbs is clearly has a lot to blame. I just feel like this is the guy Leon Rose asked for.
Right. Yeah,
and
he's not a terrible coach. He's good in some ways and he's flawed in other ways. My question is, everybody wants him fired. Who do you want to replace him? Do you think he's going to be that much better?
Yeah, I am convinced that if the Knicks had Greg Popovich, the season wouldn't be that different. The roster's just like has underperformed, but there's a lot of issues with the roster.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an imbalanced roster. You need a point guard.
Yeah, I mean, not having a point guard is just a huge issue.
Here's also the thing for everyone who says like, oh, they're not playing McBride, they're not playing Obi. Maybe the coach with like 30 years experience realizes that they're not that good right now. Not that they can't be. Maybe they're just not ready, and it wouldn't be like McBride did have one good game when he started, but maybe plenty of NBA players have like one good game here and there. Like he's day to day, probably not a good idea to start him.
I mean, plenty of guys play a lot in their rookie year and then never play much, like don't have much of an NBA career thereafter. Dennis Smith Jr. played big minutes for the Mavericks his first season. Knox played big minutes for the Knicks his first season. It doesn't mean that they're going to develop that way or that's going to be helpful. But I also feel like now the tide has turned, the season is lost. So you might as well play Obi. You might as well play McBride. You might as well play all these guys a little more.
At this point, yes, I agree. At the beginning of the season, I get it. But, yeah, now it's like play them all. Oh, by the way, Andrew sent the worst advanced stat. Luck-adjusted player estimate using a box prior regularized on-off. I don't even know what that means.
What the I started following that at the beginning, then I'm like, I'm lost.
I can't even pronounce it.
I can't even repeat what you said.
That's what LeBron is. That's
luck. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I think Tibbs has issues. I think no matter how if you had perfect lineups the whole season, maybe we have an extra couple wins. I don't think by very much. It's just the roster. I think people killed Tibbs for playing all these vets. That was the roster he was handed to and told to play. He's just playing the roster he got.
Yeah. Yeah, I really think it's the front office that messed up more than Tibbs did.
Right. I mean, I think at this point, though, the front office, I give them greater blame, but they have to get on the same page with Tibbs. And it doesn't work if they don't get on the same page with Tibbs.
I get their logic. They took a flyer. They said, well, if Kemba's good, we get him at a deal, and we're adding an all-star to a fourth-seeded team, and really we're replacing Elfrid Payton. It was a good risk.
So I asked this on Twitter, and I will get your opinion. If instead of signing Kemba, Fournier, bringing back Birksey, they signed DeRozan and Lonzo Ball, how much better do you think this team would be?
They'd be back in the top 4.
Yeah, they'd be awesome. I know Lonzo's missed some games this year. DeRozan's been goddamn awesome. And also, a lot of people, it's funny, when DeRozan got this contract from the Bulls, everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe the Bulls overpaid. This is crazy. Now they're like, oh, DeRozan might be MVP. So no one's really talking about his contract anymore.
Well, it's also when you're close, that's when you go all in to arguably over, even if it was an overpay. I mean, right now it's not, but even if it was an overpay for DeRozan, when you have the rest of the roster that's that close to competing, you can overpay for that last piece and hope it works out.
The Bulls weren't close. They didn't make the playoffs last year.
Yeah, but they thought they were. Once they got Ball and they had Levine and Vucevic, they're like, okay, we have something here. Let's go all in.
Well, they had Levine. They were worried about him leaving. They had a couple other guys who were like decent, and they were like, let's go all in. Let's see what we can do. And they traded a couple first to get Vucevic. Then they said, we have a lot of cap space. Let's use the cap space on the best available players we can get. Whereas the Knicks were like, let's use the cap space on mediocre, okay decisions.
Yeah. I mean, even Fournier and Kemba isn't that bad. It's the draft that really.
I know you're gonna go talk about.
I'm not gonna say it again, but like that's really where they messed up.
So I think the biggest issue really with Leon Rose is that I know a lot of people say like, well, this move was defensible. This move was defensible. Here's why he drafted Obi over Halliburton. Everything in a vacuum, you could be like, okay, I guess I can understand why he did that. Your job is not to make okay decisions at the time. Your job is to get results. Your job is to get these decisions right. And so far, Rose has gotten most of his decisions wrong. And clearly, like, Rose at the trade, first of all, At the trade deadline, the Knicks did nothing. At the trade deadline, he wanted to move on from almost every contract he signed in the offseason. That says he even views his offseason as a complete failure.
Yeah, his entire trade deadline was trying to just undo everything he did 9 months before, and that's not good.
Right. I mean, I would assume, and he doesn't speak to the media, so you don't really know what he thinks, but I would assume he kind of thinks most of his moves have been poor moves at this point.
Yeah.
And he's in his fairness, he had no experience running a team. And so you make mistakes when you run a team when you don't have experience doing it. No front office experience. Not like he was assistant GM somewhere else. He was an agent, which is a completely different role.
Yeah.
We went from Phil Jackson, who was a coach, not a team president, to Leon Rose. We just keep going with guys that have flashy names but don't have the experience to actually do the job.
Yeah.
By the way, I'll say. By the way, you know who's our actual GM, Jay? Do you not know this, Jay?
Is it Scott Perry?
Yes, Scott Perry. Do you know who Scott Perry actually wanted the Knicks to go for?
No.
DeMar DeRozan. He said we should try to go after DeMar DeRozan, and this was reported. And apparently, our team GM doesn't have a lot of a sway in the front office because they didn't make any attempt to go after DeRozan. But apparently, DeRozan had some interest in New York.
Cool. That's great.
But our GM wanted him, but our GM doesn't really have a real job because he's not in charge of the team.
So it's basically just like a in name only title.
I guess so. I don't know how much influence he had. Like, you would think that if, I don't understand this whole team president and GM thing, and I guess you could have a GM who's more about like the money, the cap, but that's not Perry. Perry's not a capologist. He's really about talent, and apparently, in Perry's defense, he thought DeRozan made a lot of sense, but he was outvoted because apparently it's like some dynamic that makes dysfunctional dynamic in the Knicks front office.
That's a shocker that the Knicks have a dysfunctional dynamic in the front office.
I mean, the Knicks just brought in a new consultant / GM, and that guy from Minnesota who wasn't very good in Minnesota.
Right.
I don't know what the hell they're doing. How much faith do you have in the Knicks getting this right going forward? This front office.
Scale of 1 to 100.
So they're going to have the things coming up this all they've kind of screwed themselves in cap space this summer. But the big decisions in this summer, first of all, you will likely have a top 10 pick, right?
Yeah, but it's probably going to be like 9 or 10.
And by the way, I have to say the Cam Reddish thing is one of the most dysfunctional possible. How you trade for someone, your team front office is we traded for this guy for the future, play him, and the coach is I don't think so.
Yeah, that's weird. Also, we were looking at all how Rose got all cutesy with the draft and trading down and 2-for-1s and blah blah blah. He could have just got Cam Thomas and still got Grimes.
Yeah, all his draft decisions have been goddamn terrible.
Wouldn't Cam Thomas instead of Burks right now be pretty fantastic?
Oh my god. Well, if you go back to you gave me a lot of crap for saying that in the first draft, beyond the Opie decision, which we thought was you need a point guard, you got to draft a point guard. Okay, fine. Then at number 25, they draft Emmanuel Quickley. And everyone at the time was who the hell is this? And then we grew to love Emmanuel Quickley. But if you remember, the Knicks also had, I think, the 32nd or 33rd pick in that draft. Mm-hmm. Do you remember this, Jay? I think it was the 32nd or 33rd. Anyway, and the Knicks punted on that. So they traded that away for a future second-round pick, which almost impossible to actually be a higher. At the time, people were well, that's really smart. I mean, the Knicks had the 3rd pick in the second round, but they traded to Detroit, and now they'll have a higher pick in the second round. I'm they had the 3rd pick in the second round. The chance of them having a higher pick 3 years from now doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Right.
But anyway, the Knicks, what they could have done, since Emmanuel Quickley was projected to be a second-round pick, was just draft him in the second round and draft someone else in the first round.
That would have made
Wouldn't that have been smarter?
A little bit.
A little bit smarter. And this year, when they had 2 first-round drafts, the Knicks have had 4 first-round draft picks under Leon Rose and have drafted 0 point guards in the first round. And I think Grimes has been a It's been a great pick. I'm very happy. I think he's going to be pretty good, so I'm very happy about that. I just don't know why you didn't draft a second player this year in the first round. And Cam Thomas would have been great. I mean, Jay, would you rather have Cam Thomas or would you rather have Cam Reddish? Which Cam would you rather have?
I think Cam Thomas.
Yeah, I agree too. But are you up? Are you glad they used the first round pick to get Cam Reddish?
I think it makes sense.
It's kind of another blah move. It's kind of like
okay.
yeah, it's not like a terrible move. It's just not like and he's looked good at times and not so good at times. I think there's a lot of talent there. Isn't he kind of almost like another reclamation project?
I mean, he's
not that far, yeah.
But like, I don't know. It seems like he's all right, but maybe like I swear to God, if that pick they traded for him ends up being an all-star, I'm just gonna snap.
He did one thing also, just as far as cap management. Cam Reddish they have for one more season, then they have to pay him to keep him. On the other hand, whoever they would have drafted in the first round, I guess I don't know if the guy would be as good as Cam Reddish, but that guy they'd have for 4 seasons before having to pay him.
Well, that was my big
deals.
argument about drafting a point guard instead of Obi, because now their strategy is to pay $20 million for a point guard or give up assets when you could have had one making $5 million for 4 years.
Right. They have some weird, like, they want Jalen Brunson, who was a second-round draft pick. And Brunson looks really good, but you have a second-round draft pick in McBride. Maybe he would develop also. I don't know if he'll be as good as Brunson, but, like, you're not making any effort to develop your current second-round pick, but you want someone's second-round pick for a few years ago. That guy you're willing to give a boatload to get.
Well, my concern also is he that good? Like, he's good, but is he like $20 million a year good?
I don't know. I mean, whatever. I don't know. You're right. I don't know if he's $20 million a year.
I feel like you're now in I'm going to overpay for this guy territory because we're so desperate for a point guard. Whoever they're going to get, they're going to overpay for. Again, well, not as good as a rookie contract.
But a big part of the problem also is because they don't have cap space, they can't just give him money. They have to convince Dallas to do a sign and trade, which means they might have to give up a lot to get him. Like, They might have to give up a draft pick to get him, if they can even get him.
So now they're overpaying and giving up assets instead of one they could have gotten for free, which that's what bugs me the most.
Do the Knicks have this is not the Dallas pick is next year, right? 2023, okay.
Mm-hmm.
The second. So this year is just going to be a top 10 pick. You would assume they go after a point guard, but there's only like that guy Ty is the only like highly ranked point guard in the top 10.
Yeah, there's like Ivy, which is more of a shooting guard.
Which would be not an amazing fit in what they're trying to build. Though I guess like he's probably pretty good, so if you can get him, that's great.
Yeah, they could just play him out of position for 3 years and then trade him before his rookie contract's up.
That would work. I mean, that would go with the and then so it gets basically the Knicks have the season. They have a high draft pick, which they have to nail. And then they have free agency, which they don't have the money to participate in, but have to convince another team to do a sign and trade. And their options appear to be Jalen Brunson, Malcolm Brogdon, Colin Sexton, all guys that have downsides.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where, like, I don't even know how this roster gets that much better next year.
I don't either. I don't either.
But I think one of the things I would consider doing is just giving Kemba his walking papers, because I just don't think he makes sense on the roster. And I would reduce other guys' minutes. I think going forward, Leon Rose has to be on the page of like developing for next season and sit down with Tibbs and go, hey, Tibbs, your job is 100% secure for next season. I need you guys. I need to focus on the young players going forward to see what we have for next season so we could win next season.
Andrew said on Tankathon, the point guards projected are spots 10, 17, 19, and 30. So 10 is
not great.
10 is Ty Washington, which is the guy I've had my eye on, and the Knicks are projected to pick at 10. It's almost too perfect. You know it's not going to happen.
Right. Obviously, so they're probably not getting. If there's one point guard, some team will take the point guard, and the Knicks will not have a point guard. for the $8 million, and the Knicks will be like, well, it's best player available, whatever. What's point guard? So are the Knicks gonna have Westbrook next year? That's where I feel like it's heading because the Knicks are like, LOL Knicks. That's like the dumbest thing they can do. Basically, would be what like happens, and then Knicks fans will all be like, I mean, it is Russell Westbrook. I mean, he's one of the greatest players ever. Like, how are you like? He's a triple level machine. How are you against this? Come on.
And it'll be the season where the wheels finally fall off and he misses like 50 games.
Yeah.
Because he's what, 33 now?
Even if he doesn't miss, like he doesn't, like if he plays a lot of games, like his style of play won't be the most conducive to like developing anyone around him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hard team. We're going to talk about this team for the rest of the season, Jay.
I'm going to need some pep talks, like 30 minutes before the show. Send me some like motivational pages or something.
So I don't know. And again, I was saying that that Leon Rose should sit down with Tibbs and say he has his job next year if he wants to get him to play the young players. Because if his job is up in the air, Tibbs has no incentive to even play the young players.
Right.
Because then he'll just be like, I'm going to be about wins since I'm going to be looking for a new job in 6 months or 3 months.
Yeah, definitely. They have to sit down and be like, this is the strategy. If you go with the strategy, win or lose, you have leeway.
I guess. I mean, the thing is, why can't he just reduce everyone's minutes a little bit?
I mean,
his rotations are a bit idiot. Like, why does Randall have to play the full first quarter before he subs out? Why don't you take him out?
That article you sent me about Minnesota, he had an 8-guy rotation in an overtime game.
Yeah, like and I have to say the play. Like, I mean, Randall's looked good lately, but there are so many plays. Like, I feel like part of the issue with this Knicks team also, and I don't know if you can say this is maybe it's Tibbs' fault for overworking everyone, but I feel like the Knicks play really hard for like 70% of possessions.
Yeah,
and I think about 30% of possessions, the Knicks just like do whatever comes easiest. Like on offense, like Randall will play really hard, but then you have a bunch of possessions where he's like, I'll just take what the defense gives me. Oh, all they give me is this turnaround fade away from 20 feet away. That's what a shot I got. That's a shot I got. They don't work hard enough to actually try to get a good shot in every possession. And on defense, sometimes they're giving effort, and sometimes they're like, oh, he scored. Okay.
I wonder if it's just he knows I'm going to be playing so many minutes, like I'm not going to be able to do this unless I take these possessions off.
That might be it. He really, I mean, also the idea, we gave Randall so much credit for getting all these assists last year, but to a certain extent, like, and I guess he's getting a lot of assists this year again. He's not like his average in assists isn't too bad this year, but on the other hand, like, is it a problem that Randall's our leading assist guy?
Yeah, big problem.
It's one thing if LeBron leads your team in assists. There's nothing negative to saying about Randall by saying he is not LeBron. You need a goddamn point guard. I can't get around the fact that no one runs the goddamn offense.
I know. Well, we're just about out of time.
Yeah. On Twitter, let me find the question. There was an article, and this basically there's an Mark Berman on the Post from New York Post wrote that Tom Thibodeau shouldn't be the Knicks fall guy. And Omega writes, what's our thoughts on the article? And the article basically says what we discussed, basically. The idea of like the front office went all in on this season with these players. Tibbs plays them and now gets all this crap, basically.
Yeah. I kind of agree with Berman. Tibbs definitely has things you could criticize, but I wouldn't put all the blame on him. And it's the front. I mean, really, it's Dolan. Dolan hired his second straight GM who has no experience, and shocker, it didn't work out. And I know somebody was arguing me on Twitter that it worked for the Lakers. The Lakers had Davis and LeBron force their way to the team, and every move since then has been a disaster. That team is a complete disaster. So no, it did not work in LA. It only worked for one season because two of the best players in the league in their primes like forced their way there. Like that has nothing to do with a guy with no experience.
Right. And they said Golden State at work. Well, Golden State has like has Steph Curry and has an unbelievable offense. Like
Golden State had the Splash Brothers before their GM took over, so that's a pretty good foundation to build on.
Right. And at the end of the day, like, yes, you can find situations where this worked or that worked, but generally, it usually works in most jobs if you get someone who has experience in that job.
Yeah.
I have to say, betting most people that comment on the Twitter who say it doesn't matter that Rose had no experience coming to the job would never hire anyone at their workplace who didn't have experience.
Exactly. Nor would you apply for a job that you had no experience in because you know you would screw it up.
Yeah. So, I mean, Rose now has 2 years of experience. In theory, he may get better from learning from his mistakes.
Yeah, so he'll do a better job wherever he ends up after Dolan fires him in 2 years.
By the way, what drove me crazy was the Mets did this like 2 years before the Knicks did it, and it was a complete disaster. And like they're both New York teams. You would think Dolan would just look over what's going on in Queens and be like, I don't think maybe I shouldn't do the exact same thing the Mets just did that worked out so poorly.
Right. Yeah, Andrew's asking if we think there's too many people in the front office. Seems like they have about 8 people. That also seems like it's kind of a problem too.
Right. I kind of feel like the GM should be. If the president doesn't have to be like managing the day to day, but the GM should have an outsized say in what happens. I don't want to hear the GM wanted this player and the Knicks didn't pursue it because he got outvoted.
Well, I just don't even know what the structure is. You have Perry there, Worldwide West is doing something there. Allen Houston is there. It's like, what are all these people doing? Like, I feel like there's so many people that you're obviously going to have disagreements.
They got a consultant now who used to do this job elsewhere. So they got a consultant. We're all good.
So we are nyknickspodcast@gmail.com, NY Podcast on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. I uploaded a bunch more episodes to the Patreon. We're up to episode 70. When we joined that other network, for some reason, the way he set it up, we lost about 250 episodes on the feed. So I'm putting them all on Patreon, and I sign up for a month, pay $1, get them all if you want to re-listen to the old episodes.
So, Jay, last question. Tibbs said in his at the end of post-game press conference for the last game the Knicks blew, he said there will be changes coming up. He said basically he's frustrated with everything. He sees that we have to make changes. What changes do you expect from Tibbs?
I think he actually is probably going to slowly phase out Kemba.
I think so.
I think that might be the only change, but I think he's going to start giving him like 10 to 12 minutes.
So I'm predicting Obi becomes a starter, but and then some kind of irony, he's our starting point guard.
Point Obi?
Point Obi, yeah. So like Obi's going to play, but in the worst possible position for him. Ha ha ha, Knicks. I would say you're right. I think Kemba gets phased out. I bet he starts playing McBride, starts playing some of the younger players more minutes because
he's got to know there's no chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, he's got to know there's no chance and there's no purpose at this point also.
He's also got to know that if he does something stupid again, like playing Barrett with 30 seconds left down by 12 and they get injured, he might actually get fired.
Right. I assume Cam Reddish is going to get more minutes going forward. He'll do some more things that make sense the rest of the season. If he doesn't, then like, please, oh God, fire him. Yeah. But I assume we're going to see some difference. He's not going to be like these last string of games being like, we got to go all in. 48 minutes every night. Doesn't matter how many games we lose.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be back next week. Also, join our Discord, NY Knicks Podcast on Discord. I have the links on Twitter and Facebook.
And Anthony wrote, will the front office speak to the fans before the season ends?
No. Definitely not.
Remember that time when they right before Fizz got fired, they like spoke to Perry and Mills got out there to speak like randomly to the fans?
It's so awkward.
Yeah.
They were basically just saying like Fizdale sucks without literally saying that.
I know. At the same time, I kind of like, could they do that now? Could they just could Rose say anything about the team's direction?
Even if he came out and he's like, "Yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing," I'd respect that.
I think I would really respect him coming out and just saying, "We thought we can improve on last season. We made some moves. They were reasonable and not reasonable. It's not working out, and we're gonna go in a different direction."
Yeah.
I would have a lot of Anyway, I'm excited for the Knicks to play again on Friday. Even though it's going to be not a good game, probably. They're playing Miami. They have a lot of hard games to come. Before next year, they play Miami and Philly.
Yeah, loss. All right, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week. Goodbye.
Bye, love. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. It's all over. Goodbye. It's time to go. This is the end. Say goodbye. You better go away. I'm gonna leave you. It's the end. Goodbye. Goodbye. Just leave me alone. Feels so good to say goodbye. I'm sick and tired and I'm saying goodbye. Goodbye, girl. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Everybody.
All right. I am going to get ready for bed.
Okay.
Good show, though.
Yeah. I guess we're out of topics for the rest of the season.
Pretty much. I really don't want to talk about not having a point guard and how they should have got Halliburton and all that every single episode.
No, I don't think we can really do that for the rest of the season. I hope they do something interesting the rest. Like if Tibbs just plays the young guys, at least we can be like, oh, I like what McBride did. Cam looks good. Like,
yeah.
Be like, maybe we'll talk about like, oh, this guy Taj, glad he played him 45 minutes. Like,
Yeah,
push
something
Taj.
different. Something different.
Okay.
All right. I will talk to you soon.
Okay. Later. So I guess Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday, 8:30.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll try. Yeah, 8:30.
Okay.
Okay.